Dear Markiplier, congratulations. Not every YouTuber has the opportunity or even privilege to accomplish what you have done this week. I think there is plenty to be proud of when it comes to seeing Iron Lung. Sure, it's not necessarily my niche here on YouTube, but to be honest, how could I not talk about a YouTuber making a movie that puts Sam Raimi, the original Spider-Man trilogy guy, to rest with its first day at the box office? As a frequent Markiplier watcher, I have to say, sure, I have a lot of bias going into this movie, but I came out feeling positive about it. But generally confused. I never prioritize reviewing movies when I can make character analysis videos, but this is my one exception because with such a promising creative vision, I feel the more Mark hears now, the more his journey as a director can thrive. Regardless if Markiplier ever stumbles on this video isn't really the point, but also to use Iron Lung as an example for how audiences can improve directors making their debut and how the more we elaborate, the better the chances those directors can improve. So without further ado, let's talk about Iron Lung. Really quickly though, before we get this video started, make sure to like, comment, hype, and subscribe if you like the video and if you want to see more reviews on this channel. But before the review can actually start, I need to actually play Iron Lung. Spoilers ahead, but I'm pretty baffled how different the game is to the movie. But first off, let's talk about the movie itself. So before going to see this movie, I did not play the game because I wanted to go into this with as little bias as possible, which is already impossible because I'm a Markiplier watcher. I want to start off this video with talking about the positives before I get into some of the negatives, so stay tuned for that. Can we all agree that for a $3 million budget, or however low this possibly can be, this looks beautiful? Of course, most of it, if not basically all of the movie, takes place in the Iron Lung itself, so there is no need to spend a lot on other environments, but even when it's just this, the way they utilize angles to make the ship look refreshing each time it's shown throughout this entire 2-hour movie is really impressive. Now, the Five Nights at Freddy's movies were smart enough to know that if the entire movie takes place in one office for 6 hours, then that's gonna be a really boring movie. But somehow this movie takes its basic premise of, practically nothing, and then takes that, uses it to its advantage, and makes something new out of it. Most of the game is literally just clicking a button, go forward, go backward, turn, take a picture, and then bam, you're dead, and then that's it. It's not necessarily movie material on paper, but then Markiplier just kind of went with it and just succeeded. This leads me to another positive that I have about the movie, Markiplier himself. I mean, wow. I feel like it does take some time to get to the point, but he really does embody his character and progressively grows more and more into his role the longer the movie goes on for. And the reason why I think it's so good in this movie is because it's actually authentic. When I think of the Five Nights at Freddy's movies, I don't think the acting is authentic at all. I am very sure Josh Hutcherson has not picked up a single game. He has no clue what the games are about, but because Markiplier has made multiple playthroughs of Iron Lung and discovering new things about it, it makes his character feel a little bit more realistic in that sense. He understands what this game is, and he understands his character the most out of everybody, and he's able to portray that really well throughout the film. Especially talking about the progression in this film, I do have to bring up how well this movie holds up. I think that as soon as Mark actually rams into the skeleton is when this movie really starts picking up. And I think the best quality about it is that it just doesn't let go until the end. I'll get back to more of that in my negatives, but I do want to focus on another positive, and that is easily the makeup department. Again, for a really small budget film, this thing reminds me of Godzilla Minus One in the sense that it uses its budget to its extent and makes it look really good in the end. There are some great effects here, especially when Markiplier rips his arm off when he's discovering that the blood is doing something to his skin. That stuff is really cool. And I do really like that Markiplier starts off in his best form at the very beginning of the movie and then progressively gets more and more injured. I think that really helps with the flow of time and basically makes the movie a little bit more easy to follow. Another positive I have to say is, oh my god, the music is so good. Without the music, I do not think that this movie would have been as impactful as it was in some places. And I have to just say, congratulations to Andrew Hulshult, because this music makes everything about this movie more engaging. Finally, I just want to really quickly talk about the effects and the set design in this movie as well before I get into the negatives. So both visual and practical effects look really good in this film, and I think that's all amplified by the set design of the actual Iron Lung itself and and the stakes of that they're under an ocean of blood. I couldn't name a single spot where I don't think the effects look bad in any sense. Obviously, they use a lot of shaky cam, which, you know, I'll talk about that a little later. They use a lot of shaking cam in order to make the movie and the effects look better, especially with that small of a budget. The visual effects, if the camera was just like static, which honestly would have made the movie probably look a little worse, but I think the shaky cam was a good idea in the end. So for a TLDR, everything I liked about this movie is the cinematography, acting, makeup, music, effects, and the set design. So let's talk about the negatives now. I think for starters, the script is a little funky. As someone that didn't play the game before watching the movie, I didn't really understand everything to begin with. The first 20 minutes, I think a lot of people have actually said this already, but the first 20 minutes are a little frustrating if you don't know what's going on. They do eventually start getting places, but I think easily if they added maybe like a small, even 1 minute scene of seeing him being welded to the actual submarine, I think that would have helped the movie set the stakes and the tone of the movie a little better. I think there are a lot of cool things in the script. It's not a full negative, but I mean, there are just a little bits and pieces there. Like, not everything is really explained by the end, and I'll get to the ending in a second, but there's moments that I feel like aren't actually really happening, and they're all in Simon's head. And I think those parts are cool to watch, but story-wise, they're a little confusing of where exactly they place. Like, there's a moment in here where a portion of this movie didn't actually happen. Like, I know that for sure, but I don't know exactly when it started happening, whether it was when Mark hit his head really hard with that really, really cool shot of him flying to the back of the ship, or if this is just his character going more and more insane, and then that's just the explanation. I'm not totally sure still, even after watching a couple videos trying to understand it. I think that it would have been very beneficial if someone who hasn't played Iron Lung read the script, because I think it would have ironed out some of the flukes in the writing or some of the stuff that just doesn't make sense. Outside of that, though, the sound design is another negative I want to talk about, not because I think it's overly bad the entire movie, but the last 5 minutes of the movie, I cannot understand a single thing going on. That's because the visuals are so chaotic and the dialogue is so distorted and has a voice changer so that I can barely understand anything. I really think it was important to hear what she was saying, but then everything blows up and then Mark's dead. I find it really overwhelming when obviously that was the point, but too overwhelming to the point I think I needed to at least see it on a 0.75 times speed in order to really get what was going on. It feels pretty rushed in that sense because we go from things being semi-normal to then blood everywhere, and then he's going to die, and then the Iron Lung comes to life and his arm is ripped off, and then he rams into the thing and then it suddenly blows up like a SpongeBob episode. All of this happens while also having a really important monologue happening, but just once again, I'll just say that it's just too much going on that it's impossible to multitask.
Editor Enchanted here. I just rewatched the movie, and to be honest, I still don't understand most of the plot. I was wide awake and locked in through the 2 times I saw it, but I still don't fully understand what a lot of the ambiguous scenes mean. And to be honest, I think overall the ending should have probably wrapped up a few more of these ends than leave it to theories to solve what seems to be outside, and not to be rude, to be just kind of a cop-out conclusion.
So what's the point of me even reviewing this? And I know this sounds bad, but hear me out. I think it's a great thing to criticize Iron Lung. A couple months ago, I talked about Knights of Guinevere and talked about how as a pilot for a show, we need to put away our biases and be honest so that if there's anything more to come out of that series, they can improve on what we liked and didn't like. So for Markiplier, I think that this is a very well-made movie in terms of visuals. I have no complaints there, and that ranges from cinematography to makeup. I think Mark himself did a much better job than I thought, but I think he needs to learn for whatever his next project is to have a couple extra eyes on the script. What I mean by this is that it's going to be very hard to get others, including me, to understand the story when it's only you, the guy making the movie, and the creator of the original Iron Lung writing the script. I would sure hope the writers understand their movie, but I think there needs to be some more self-awareness to writing it so that it doesn't get too confusing that no one outside of the main writers can understand the main plot. I will eventually rewatch this movie and watch whatever Mark makes next, but I do hope that these criticisms that I gave in this movie help him out later on. Funnily enough, my outro is slightly inspired by Markiplier, so with that said, thank you everybody for watching. I'm Enchanted. Bye.